Maybe that prophecy was my last chance to see Yule, but maybe it's better this way. Maybe it's better to never see her again than make more mistakes.
I couldn't stop it, don't you get that? Give me this last thing! Let me get it right just this once!
You make it sound rational to cut away parts of yourself. You deserve to be alone. Sarah! Sarah! No! Wait! Don't go!
Lightning Returns is an amazing end to the Final Fantasy XIII series. This game was released on November 21st, 2013 for the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and was ported to PC in 2015. It was the follow-up to Final Fantasy XIII and XIII-2. At this point in time, there's no definitive answer as to when the Fabula Nova Crystallis was cancelled, which was supposed to be a shared mythos that could be changed and recontextualized between the Final Fantasy XIII series, the Final Fantasy Type 0 series, and Versus 13. But considering Hajime Tabata took over as director for Final Fantasy XV after its name change in 2013, I imagine that it has little to no influence on the story of this game. Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII is the end of a very controversial series that in some people's eyes is the worst thing Square Enix has ever released or some of the best RPGs ever made. So as someone who loves this series, let's talk about saving souls at the end of the world and why it's the best thing Square Enix could have done. But before we get started, if you enjoy my videos, please like, subscribe, and share my content. Also, if you wish to support my work directly, becoming a YouTube member is the best way to do so. With that being said, thank you for being here and let's start with the combat. This game completely throws away the command synergy battle system for the style change battle system, which refers to the variety of costume Lightning wears throughout the game. However, these cosmetics, or schemata as they're referred to in the game, are the foundation of the combat, with each schemata having unique stats and each allowing for specialized builds like an all-rounder, physical attacks, magic damage, tanking, debuffs, and others. Also, these builds can be further augmented by whichever weapon, shield, and accessory that are equipped to that schemata. You can bring 3 schemata into battle that Lightning can switch between at any time, meaning that you have to think about the synergy of how these different loadouts work together. And every schemata has 4 slots, meaning that Lightning will have up to 12 abilities at any given time, leading to heavy customization and freedom within the options given to the player. But enough about what Lightning wears, and let's talk about how she fights. This game brings back the stagger system, although there are some changes. With no stagger bar to be seen, it gets replaced by a heart rate monitor to indicate how close players are to staggering an enemy. But this isn't the only difference. Most enemies have 2 stages of stagger, one that increases the damage you do, and the second one that will completely stop them from attacking for a few seconds. These stagger conditions go beyond just finding an elemental weakness, with plenty of enemies needing to be parried, attacked at a specific time, or hit with a combination of elements to get staggered, leading to a lot of variety with monster encounters. However, you can't do any of these things without the ATB meter for each schemata that basically acts as stamina within the battle. This is where the majority of difficulty comes from within Lightning Returns. Due to its more action-focused combat, managing these meters will draw your attention away from the enemies, opening players up to damage. Or if players decide to ignore the ATB, this could leave them in a position where they aren't able to attack, block, and capitalize on their previous actions. However, this can be mitigated with items that help Lightning recover ATB at a faster rate, in addition to your backup schemata recharging faster when not in use. Despite everything, there is one more aspect to the combat that I haven't addressed, which is energy points, which can do a variety of things like healing and reviving Lightning, using special attacks or overclock that will allow Lightning to keep a constant flow of attack on top of fully recharging all 3 ATB meters once the time limit of overclock is finished. So in comparison, I feel like like the game is much better scaled than 13.2, with me never feeling over or under leveled at any point within the game, because of the flexibility in combat, allowing me to not only deal with enemies but bosses in whatever way I think is best. This is shown off in the boss fight against Caius, who I believe is the strongest main story boss, who is supposed to be attacked with magic or physical damage depending on if he's in commando or ravager phase, and burst damage when he's staggered. But I decided to blitz Caius literally by using a speedrun strategy, where I had to build a schematic to have as much physical damage as possible based on my weapon, shield, and accessories. Then to execute this plan, I had to spam overclock and blitz to defeat Caius before he even attacked me. This is just one of the many examples of the freedom that is allowed in Lightning Returns. So let's move on to the mechanics outside of combat. I think the thing people are most interested in aside from the combat is the time mechanic, which understandably could make some people not want to play this game because no one likes feeling rushed when playing a game. One in-game day is 1 hour in real life, one in-game hour is 2.5 minutes in real life, and one in-game minute is 2.5 seconds. This makes it sound like the game has a very strict time limit, but in all honesty it isn't that bad because time stops during cutscenes, battles, buying stuff at shops, when the game is paused, and special occasions like the final day. But the most important and best way to conserve time is with the chronostasis ability that stops time for 30 in-game minutes or 75 seconds in real life for the cost of 1 energy point that can be recharged by fighting some enemies. So as long as you're consistently defeating monsters instead of running away, which will lose you an hour of in-game time, you will have more than enough to do whatever you want. For example, in my playthrough, I completed the 5 main story quests in 6 days while averaging 3 hours and 45 minutes per day over 14 days, including the final day, which is just the final dungeon, 4 optional bosses, and the final boss, which gave me a week within the game to do whatever I want, and that time was mostly spent by completing side quests that are somewhat necessary to completing the game, since this game doesn't have a traditional level up system. Instead, Lightning will get stat increases for all of the quests she completes, with main story quests giving the most, side quests varying from person to person, and the canvas of prayers, which are the game's version of fetch quests that you can complete while focusing on the previous 2, giving the least. Initially, I didn't enjoy this form of progression, but as the game continued, I started to enjoy it once I realized a few things. 1, it was a unique way to get players to engage with optional content. 2, it broke the monotony of JRPG grinding that is kind of a staple of the subgenre at this point. 3, it was an easy way of telling players that the main quests were all you need to beat the game. And while I am one of the few people who enjoys mindless grinding because it's relaxing to me, I would like to see something like this be used in other Square Enix games. So at this point, I've talked enough about the gameplay. Let's talk about the thing that stayed consistent throughout the 13 series, which is the environment, exploration, and visuals. Starting off with the visuals, it's very obvious that they're reusing assets from the first 2 games to fill out parts of this world. But that's okay because Lightning Returns picks up where the first game left off with excellent visuals that still hold up today. With the holy city of Luxurion, the harsh sands of the Dead Dunes, the vibrant city of Usanon, and the unrestricted nature of the Wildlands. This is another place where Lightning Returns is unique compared to what came before, with Final Fantasy XIII being an extremely linear game, with it opening up very late into the game. Then Final Fantasy XIII-2 has less than 10 explorable areas, but due to time travel it allows us to explore these areas during different time periods or alternate timelines at any moment after unlocking them, making them feel fresh. But Lightning Returns takes a completely different approach, with all 4 of the game's major areas being explorable from the start, giving players the freedom to tackle the main quest and the entire game in whatever order they want to. However, admittedly, there is a preferred order based on the strength of enemies, so let's talk about what the areas represent. Starting with Luxurion, which shows off how people will cling to the smallest bit of hope in a world that doesn't have any, and how even at the end of the world, organizations like the Holy Order will cling on to any power they have to stand above others. Then there's Yusanon, showing what happens when people give up on hope and soothe the encroaching nihilism with a never-ending party until the world ends. Following that, the game gives us the Dead Dunes, exposing us to bandits and showing us that people will still seek adventure in a world on the brink. And lastly, the Wildlands, simply showing that people just want to live normal lives even as the end is coming. But moving on, now let me get into the story. So the basic summary of Lightning Returns is that after the events of 13.2, time was broken by Caius, making every living thing on the planet immortal outside of murder, sickness, or special cases of people aging and dying naturally. On top of that, most of the world and people were consumed by an energy called chaos that even the god of the 13 universe, Benevilza, couldn't control. So 500 years later, after Lightning wakes up from her crystal sleep at the end of 13.2, she makes a deal with Benevilza where the god will revive Sarah into the new world it's creating in exchange for Lightning becoming their agent, where she will save as many souls as possible to bring them into the new world and disrupt the biggest sources of chaos to give the world a couple more days. Along the way, you find out that Hope is Lightning's guy in the chair as another agent of God. After this, Lightning goes on a journey where she deals with the biggest sources of chaos, leading her to help former comrades Noel, Snow, Shaz, Fang, and Vanille, reunites with other characters like Sid Reigns and Mog, and accepting that she can't save everyone's soul after an encounter with Caius. However, during Lightning's journey, strange things happen, like Hope being extremely cold when it comes to their missions and talks about past events as if he's an outside observer. Then Lightning realizes that Benevilza has dulled her emotions to a point where she sees a vision of Sarah and barely feels anything. And many other troubling things are brought to Lightning's attention by a character called Lumina who looks like a younger Sarah. All of these things lead to the final day where Lightning loses her faith in God, deciding to save every soul possible regardless if they're stuck in the chaos or not, which Benevilza doesn't like because he has no control over the chaos and wants complete control in the new world he's creating, leading to a fight between Lightning and Benevilza where Lightning comes out on top with the help of her friends throughout the series. This leads to Caius becoming the new god of the world, watching over the world's cycle of life and death because someone has to do it and he wants to keep all of his memories. Following this, after a very long time, we see Lightning reincarnated on her way to see someone, and that is the end of the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy. Lightning Returns' story is the most straightforward of the three games, with the excellent relationships between the characters and how they interact with each other being great, like Lightning stopping Snow from becoming a thief by communicating their shared love of Sarah, shows how much the 500 years have gotten to the rest of humanity, and this is expounded with the side quest that shows a variety of responses to the world's unmoving, unchanging, slowly decaying state that I found to be nearly as interesting as the main story. But there isn't much more to talk about here except the main character of the game, Lightning. As the central character of the game, Lightning's evolution showcases her growth, determination, and resilience from the onset. Lightning is depicted as a strong-willed individual as always, with her unwavering determination to protect her sister Sarah and save as many people as she can before the world's impending doom. However, due to her dulled emotions, the often stoic protagonist comes across as borderline robotic, but she still harbors deep emotional vulnerability. Her journey is not only fueled by her love for Sarah, but also by her longing for a world that once was. She struggles with the weight of her responsibilities and the losses she has endured due to her own failures. Her journey serves as a catalyst for a reassessment of her identity. This growth is reflected in her interactions with other characters, as she learns to rely on her companions more than she ever has. As the savior of Nova Crystallis, she must balance her mission with the desires and needs of the people she encounters. This internal conflict challenges her sense of duty and forces her to make difficult choices, further showcasing the depth and complexity of her character, which is expressed mostly through the gameplay with the quests you choose to prioritize. To sum it up, Lightning is at her best at the end of her long journey, and honestly makes me want to see more of her. At this point, you can tell that I like Lightning Returns and feel that it's a great end to the 13th series and will satisfy most fans that stuck with it this long. I hope I've given some new people to the Final Fantasy franchise a reason to play this game, or someone who has played this game a new perspective to view it from, and that's what I have to say about saving souls in Lightning Returns. So with that being said, if you enjoy my videos, please like, subscribe, and share my content. Also, if you wish to support my work directly, becoming a YouTube member is the best way to do so. And if you want to see another Final Fantasy video essay, that's on screen right now.